Hi, I'm Ben Valak and I've come up with a great way of figuring out how to protect your data. Your family videos and work files are far too important to leave exposed to any kind of risk. The problem these days with everyone using cloud services like iCloud to store their photos and files on, they feel they don't really need any extra backups. But actually it's just a different set of risks. For example, if you lost access to your email account or your iCloud account was hacked, all your photos are gone, it's a single point of failure, and that's what we're trying to avoid. If you want to get totally protected, the routine in this video is going to be a great place to start. The first thing we're going to do is get all our data organized in a simple system that's going to make the backup routine much easier to manage. If you can't fit all your data on your primary device, then you're going to need another drive. So that's what we're going to call the archive drive. And that's where you put all the projects that you're no longer working on, which means you keep your faster internal solid state drive on your laptop or your computer available for the active projects that you're working on. It's worth putting the effort into consolidating your data into this two-location system because it makes managing your data and your backups so much easier. If you can fit all your files on the primary drive, then you don't need the archive drive, and you can just follow along and bear that in mind for the time that you do. The rest of the routine for that primary drive is still the same, so it's going to work just as well. So firstly, let's outline the risk scenarios that affect our data. And this is broadly three different kinds of risk that increase in severity as they decrease in likelihood. So the first risk is accidental file loss or file corruption. And the thing that sets this apart from the other kinds of risk is that we don't know when it's failed. We don't know when those files have gone missing. So the backup system needs to store version history back through time. The second risk is a complete drive failure. And this one has the potential to make life very difficult because it takes a long time to restore a whole operating system drive onto a new drive when you recover from a backup. Thirdly, we have something like fire or a flood or theft that affects your whole property. And these things sound really rare, but of course, if it was to happen, the last thing you'd want to be doing is worrying about having lost data. And the main requirement from the backup system in this case is that your backup drive is stored off-site, somewhere far away from your property. The first risk actually only affects our primary drive because we're not actively working on files on the archive drive. And Apple's Time Machine is really perfect for this. Individual files still can get corrupted on the archive drive, but we'll have another system to deal with that. So practically speaking, this is where you need the first bit of hardware. And that's just a cheap USB drive that you can plug into your Mac, and this is what you'll run Time Machine on. So it stays connected to your Mac the whole time, and you set up Time Machine, turn on encryption, and then you just forget about it. In terms of capacity, this needs to be at least 1.5 times the capacity of your main primary drive, ideally 2 times. The more space, the further back in time it will save those revisions to your files. Now on to total drive failure, and this is where we need a bootable clone. And this means as soon as your main primary drive fails, you can actually just hold down the Alt key on your computer and choose your backup drive and boot straight off it. You'll be in as if nothing had happened in no time at all. And this is the reason we can't actually use the Time Machine drive to protect against this scenario, because you can't boot off Time Machine drives, and in fact, recovering a whole operating system off a Time Machine drive is really time consuming as well. And because we're not saving historic versions of files, the bootable clone only needs to be exactly the same capacity as your primary drive. So it's not going to be an expensive drive. Again, just a cheap USB drive is fine. The idea is you use software like Carbon Copy Cloner to copy your Mac to your drive overnight, every night. For protection against fire and theft, of course, we need an off-site backup. And the situation we want to avoid here is having to go and get the drive, bring it and make the backup and then take it off-site again, because you're unprotected during that stage and it's such a hassle you'll probably forget and it'll go out of date and you won't bother. The magic solution here is to have a second bootable clone, and you keep that off-site, and then once a week you swap it over with your on-site version. So your off-site version always gets updated once a week, and you've always got the daily clone running on your desk as well. So in terms of hardware, that's just another cheap USB drive, exactly the same as the first bootable clone, same capacity, and it's configured in exactly the same way, so it'll run as long as it's connected to your Mac. So far the complete routine for the primary drive is a Time Machine backup, covering us back through time with our full version history, an on-site bootable clone and an off-site bootable clone, and those two get swapped over once a week. If you have the archive drive as well, then you can apply all the same principles, except because we're not actively working on files on the archive drive, we don't need the Time Machine backup routine running on that one. And we're not changing files very often on the archive drive either, so the off-site clone serves as protection for both the fire and theft risk as well as the total drive failure risk. Carbon Copy Cloner can actually run an integrity check when it's creating these clones, so we're protected against individual files getting corrupted as well. So we're in pretty good shape. But if the archive drive was to fail, or the fire or flood risk took out your primary drive and both its on-site backups, then you're just left with a single copy of your data. And the last thing you want to happen is when you put those drives under the heavy load of restoring them to another drive, that they would fail at that point because there's no more backups. The perfect solution here is an online backup service, and I use Backblaze, which includes 30 days of file history as well as support for external hard drives. So by itself, it actually covers us for all three of our risk scenarios, and the only thing stopping and negating the need for our hard drive based system is that restoring from it is going to be pretty slow, because obviously you've got to download your files or wait for them to post to your hard drive. But when it's combined with our hard drive based system, boy does it really become the icing on the cake and a pretty much infallible system. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips and reviews on interesting technology and design ideas that help us get the most out of modern family life. And I'll see you in the next one.